I died choking on my own blood. The taste of betrayal sharper than the shards of glass from the windshield that had exploded into my face. 1 second. I was screaming at my brother Marcus as he floored the accelerator. His hands white-knuckled on the wheel, eyes wild with that same venomous glare he'd thrown at me during the family meeting just hours before. The next, the world flipped upside down, tires screeching, metal crumpling like paper, and then nothing but the cold, wet pavement of that godforsaken Queens back road pressing into my shattered ribs. But death wasn't the end. It was a goddamn reset button. I woke up gasping in my old queen-sized bed in the cramped Brooklyn walk-up I'd called home before the Harrington Empire swallowed me whole. The alarm clock blinked 7:14 a.m. February 14th, 2023, Valentine's Day. The morning of that fateful family summit at Dad's Midtown penthouse. My heart hammered like a jackhammer, sweat soaking the sheets. But my body was whole again. 28 years old. No scars from the crash. No hollow ache from the years of their abuse. I bolted upright, staring at my reflection in the vanity mirror across the room, Elena Harrington. The black sheep they'd all pretended didn't exist until she became useful. And now I remembered every lie, every knife in the back. They thought they'd buried me alive in that meeting, voting me out like yesterday's trash. But they didn't know the half of it. I was the ghost investor who'd funneled millions into their sinking ship of a company, all under the alias Shadow Capital. And this time, I wouldn't just haunt them. I'd burn the whole damn fleet down. The city buzzed outside my window, horns blaring like a symphony of second chances. I laughed a raw, ugly sound that echoed off the peeling wallpaper. Marcus had always been the golden boy. Dad's mini-me with the Ivy League polish and the ruthless streak that made Harrington Imports a cutthroat player in the import-export game. Mom? She was the ice queen. Her Botox smile hiding the ledger of secrets she'd buried deeper than Dad's offshore accounts.
And Sarah.
My baby sister. The one I'd raised after Mom checked out emotionally, sweet little Sarah, who'd sold me out for a slice of the pie. They'd all turned on me that day, accusing me of sabotage when all I'd done was question Dad's shady deals with those cartel-adjacent suppliers down in Miami. You're a liability, Elena, Dad had snarled. Out. Just like that. Kicked to the curb. Disowned on the spot. I'd driven off in a rage, Marcus tailing me like a rabid dog, screaming about family loyalty while he tried to run me off the road. The crash was ruled an accident, drunk driving, they said, pinning it on me even in death. My estate went to them, probated faster than a bad Tinder date. They partied on my grave, toasting to the Harrington legacy while my anonymous investments kept their stock afloat. Irony? It tasted like ash. But not this time. I swung my legs over the bed, feet hitting the cold hardwood. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Text from Sarah. All hearts and can't wait for brunch. Big sis. Red heart, God. The innocence she faked so well. I deleted them without replying. Today, I'd walk into that meeting not as the broken daughter, but as the wolf in sheep's clothing. First things first, coffee, black as my soul, and a quick call to my lawyer. Victor, it's Elena. Pull the trigger on Shadow Capital's audit. Full transparency. Starting noon. By 10 a.m., I was striding through the revolving doors of Harrington Tower, the glass monolith that Dad had built on the backs of deals dirtier than a subway rat. The lobby smelled of money, leather and espresso, and the security guard, Old Manny, nodded me through with a wary smile. Miss Elena.
Been a while.
Yeah, it had. Last time, I'd been escorted out by private muscle after the boardroom blow-up. This time, I hit the elevator button for the 52nd floor, my Louboutins clicking like countdown timers. The conference room was a shrine to excess, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson, a table long enough to host the Last Supper, and walls lined with photos of Harrington's past, stern great-grandpa who'd smuggled whiskey during Prohibition, Dad shaking hands with senators. They were all there when I pushed open the double doors, Dad at the head, Marcus to his right, Mom scrolling her phone like she was above it all, Sarah fidgeting with her necklace, the one I'd bought her for her sweet 16. The room fell silent, forks pausing midair over their catered spread of avocado toast and poached eggs. Elena? Dad's voice was a whip crack, his salt and pepper brows furrowing. What the hell are you doing here? We sent the papers. You're out. I smiled, slow and sharp, dropping my trench coat over the back of an empty chair. Underneath, I wore the power suit I'd splurged on last month, the one that made me look like I owned the room, not begged for scraps. Papers?
Oh.
You mean the dissolution decree?
Cute.
But I'm here for the meeting. As a stakeholder. Marcus snorted, leaning back with that smug grin, his Rolex glinting under the fluorescence. Stakeholder? Last I checked, you were crashing on couches and peddling your little art on Etsy. Get real.
Sis.
Security. No one moved. Sarah's eyes darted to me, wide and guilty, her fork trembling. Mom finally looked up, lips pursed like she'd sucked a lemon. Elena, darling, this is a family matter. You've made your choices. My choices. I laughed again, pulling out my tablet and sliding it across the table to Dad. The screen glowed with the Shadow Capital portfolio, line graphs spiking like heart monitors on steroids, every wire transfer timestamped to Harrington Imports' darkest hours. Try funneling $8 million into your opioid-tainted shipments from Colombia. Or the $2 million that bailed out your diversification scam with those fake emerald mines in Montana. Shadow Capital isn't some faceless VC firm.
Dad.
It's me. The room imploded. Dad's face drained to the color of bad milk, his hand slamming the tablet so hard the screen cracked. What the? This is forgery. Marcus. Call the lawyers. But Marcus was staring, slack-jawed, his phone forgotten in his lap. Sarah whimpered. Elena.
How?
Mom? She just sipped her mimosa. But I saw the flicker, the calculation behind those Botox walls. Forge this, I said, tapping play on the voice recording I'd queued up. My own voice filled the room. From a burner phone call 6 months back, Shadow Capital approves the transfer. But Harrington, if you screw this up, I pull everything. Dad's gruff reply followed. You won't regret it.
Partner.
Families sticks together. Silence stretched like a noose. I leaned against the table, arms crossed, letting it sink in. The moment I'd replayed 1,000 times in the void between death and rebirth. They'd betrayed me for power, buried my warnings under their greed, and left me to rot. But I'd built my empire in the shadows, scraping by on freelance graphic design gigs while anonymously propping up their throne.
Why?
Because even after everything, I believed in the Harrington name. Stupid. Sentimental.
Done.
Here's the deal, I continued, voice steady as steel. I'm calling an emergency board vote. Shadow Capital now owns 28% of Harrington Imports, enough to veto your next quarter's agenda. And, trust me, gentlemen and ladies, I'm vetoing a lot. Dad lunged to his feet, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. You little bitch. You think you can waltz in here and… Watch your tone. Richard. I cut in, using his first name like a slap. Or Shadow Capital leaks the Miami ledgers to the feds. You remember those? The ones with the facilitation fees to keep the docs quiet about your side hustle? His eyes bulged, veins popping in his neck. Marcus jumped up, face twisted in fury. You're bluffing. No way you… Bluffing. I pulled up the email chain on the tablet, forwarding it live to the board's shared drive. Attachments, scan docs, wire confirmations, even a photo of me signing the incorporation papers under my alias. I've got more. Want the IRS audit trail? Or how about the whistleblower tip I filed anonymously last week? It's sitting on a prosecutor's desk right now. Sarah burst into tears, burying her face in her hands. Please, Elena, don't do this. We're family. Family? The word tasted like bile. Family is what you pretended to be when you testified against me in probate court. Elena was unstable. Your Honor. Always talking about conspiracies. Ring a bell. Cease. She sobbed harder. But I felt no pity. This was the fracture line. The deep betrayal that had cracked me open. Sarah had been my shadow growing up, me teaching her to ride a bike in Prospect Park, me covering for her shoplifting phase, me wiring her tuition when Mom cut her off for dating that tattooed musician. And she'd sold me out for Marcus's promise of a junior exec spot. Mom stood then, her voice a silken blade. Enough dramatics. Elena. What do you want? Money? A seat? Name it. And we negotiate. I met her gaze. Ice for ice. Negotiate?
No.
Mother. This isn't a deal. It's a reckoning. Step 1. Dad resigns as CEO by end of day. Marcus, you're demoted to warehouse grunt. No salary bump for a year. Sarah, you're out of the trust fund until you earn your keep flipping burgers. And you? I turned to Mom, who arched a perfect brow. You spill every secret you've got on Dad's skeletons. Starting with great-grandpa's prohibition stash that funded this tower. The room erupted shouts, accusations flying like shrapnel. Dad roared about lawsuits, Marcus about betrayal, Sarah about how I was ruining everything. But I stood there, unmoving, the ghost of my former self watching from the wings. This was power, raw and unfiltered, the kind that didn't ask permission. By noon, Victor had confirmed the shares were ironclad. By 2 p.m., the board caved under threat of dissolution. As they filed out, defeated shells of themselves, Dad paused at the door, his hand on the frame. You always were the weak one, Elena. But this makes you a monster. I smiled, cold as the February wind whipping the skyline. Better a monster alive than a saint in the ground.
Dad.
See you at the deposition. That night, alone in my walk-up with a bottle of Napa Valley Cab and a stack of burner files. The high crashed. Rebirth wasn't clean. It itched like a bad tattoo. Memories of the crash bleeding into dreams. But revenge? It burned brighter. Tomorrow, I'd start dismantling the real empire, the one built on lies. And if it meant getting my hands dirty,
so be it.
The Harringtons had taught me well. The fallout hit like a nor'easter, whipping through Manhattan's canyons and rattling windows from Wall Street to the Upper East Side. By Monday morning, the New York Post had splashed it across page 1. Harrington heiress haunts dynasty. Secret investor ousts patriarch in boardroom bloodbath. No photos of me yet, but the speculation was a feeding frenzy. Is Shadow Capital a Russian front? One subhead screamed. Or Daddy's dirty secret? Another jabbed. I sipped my flat white at a corner booth in a Soho cafe, scrolling the headlines on my laptop. A ghost of a smile playing on my lips. Let them spin. Chaos was my new best friend. Victor called at 9:15 sharp, his gravelly Brooklyn accent cutting through the espresso machine's hiss. Elena, you beautiful maniac. The shares locked in. Board ratified Dad's resignation at dawn. Marcus is fuming, tried to rally the old guard. But they're jumping ship faster than rats off the Titanic. What's next? I traced the rim of my cup, watching a couple at the next table argue over oat milk lattes. Normal problems. Mine? A family imploding under the weight of its own rot. Next, we audit the books. Full forensic dive. I want every shell company, every kickback, every dime they siphoned into personal slush funds. And Victor, dig into Mom's side. She was great-grandpa's accountant during the war years. There's dirt there, deep as the Hudson. He chuckled, low and knowing. You're playing with fire,
Kid.
Good, I said, hanging up. Fire was what I'd felt in those final seconds, the acrid smoke filling my lungs. The flames licking the undercarriage as Marcus's car fishtailed away into the night. He'd claimed it was a chase gone wrong, that I'd swerved first. The cops bought it. The family buried it. But I remembered his taillights shrinking, the deliberate punch of his bumper against mine. Coward. Back at the tower, now my tower. Courtesy of the emergency bylaws, I claimed Dad's corner office. The view was obscene, Empire State Building piercing the clouds like a middle finger to the world. I unpacked my one box, laptop, a framed photo of me and Sarah at Coney Island, I'd smash it later, and a dog-eared copy of The Art of War. Sun Tzu had it right. Know your enemy. And mine? They were predictable as a Times Square tourist trap. First visitor, Sarah. At 11 a.m. Knocking like a scared kitten. Her eyes were puffy, mascara streaked, clutching a Chanel tote like a shield. Elena, please. I gestured to the leather couch, perching on the desk's edge. Talk. She collapsed, words tumbling out in a rush. I didn't mean it, the testimony. I mean, Marcus made me. Said if I didn't back him, he'd cut me off too. You're my sister. I love you. Love. I echoed. The word a punch. Flashes. Her laughter in my apartment after Mom's third affair blew up. Us splitting a pizza at 2 a.m. While she confessed her dreams of law school. I'd paid the deposit, forged the recommendation letter. Love doesn't testify lies in court.
Sarah.
It doesn't watch your sister burn and toast champagne over the ashes. But I saw the calculation, the plea for mercy wrapped in genuine hurt. What do I have to do? I'll quit the company. Transfer schools. Anything.
Just.
Don't destroy us.
Us.
As if I were the interloper. I leaned forward, voice low. You want in? Earn it. Start by testifying for real this time. Against Marcus. The crash wasn't an accident, you know that. His texts from that night? Need to shut her up for good. I have screenshots. Her face crumpled.
A sob escaping. God.
Elena.
You're
Different. Hard. Dying does that to a girl. The words slipped out before I could cage them, and her eyes widened, confusion, not comprehension. Of course. To her, I was just the vengeful bitch who'd clawed her way back. Not the woman who'd clawed her way out of a coffin. She left in pieces, promising to think it over.
I didn't hold my breath.
Trust was a luxury I'd buried with my old self. Lunch was a power play, a sit-down with the board's independence at Le Bernardin, where the lobster bisque cost more than my old rent. They were suits, graying temples, Rolexes understated, wary but intrigued. Miss Harrington, one started, a silver fox named Hargrove.
Your
Intervention is bold. But sustainable? The stock's down 15%. I speared a scallop, letting the silence build. Sustainable? When Dad was cooking books with Miami wise guys.
no.
But under Shadow Capital's oversight? Hell yes. We're pivoting, clean suppliers, ethical audits, a rebrand to Harrington Legacy, transparent trade. And you, I met each gaze. You stay, or you go with golden parachutes. Your call. Buy dessert. I'd flipped 3 votes. Power wasn't just shares, it was the whisper that bent spines. Afternoon brought the Real storm, Marcus. Storming in unannounced. 2 goons in cheap suits flanking him like discount bodyguards. You think you're untouchable now, he snarled, slamming the door. His face was a roadmap of rage, bags under his eyes. Ty, ask you. I know what you are. Elena. A fraud. A nobody who got lucky with some crypto scam. I didn't flinch. Just hit record on my phone hidden in the drawer. Crypto?
Cute theory.
But let's talk facts. Like how you diverted $500K from the Colombian shipment to your offshore poker habit. Or the affair with Dad's exec assistant, that little redhead from accounting? She's singing to the auditors as we speak. He paled, but lunged anyway, grabbing my wrist across the desk. You ruined everything. Dad's stepping down because of you. Years of self-defense classes from my unstable phase paying off. One goon moved, but I had the panic button under the desk pressed. Security swarmed in seconds. Assault in the executive suite, I said calmly as they cuffed him. Add it to the list.
Boys.
As they dragged him out.
He spat.
You crazy bitch. Blood's thicker than. Blood washes off. Marcus. The door clicked shut, and I sank into the chair, adrenaline crashing. For a heartbeat, I was back on that road, his bumper kissing mine, the world inverting. Shake it off. Elena. This was the game now. Evening fell with Mom's olive branch, a text inviting me to dinner at their Upper East Side brownstone. Family reconciliation. No lawyers. I almost deleted it. But secrets? They festered. I went. The dining room was a museum of denial, crystal chandelier twinkling over Wedgwood china, portraits of Harrington ancestors glaring down. Dad was absent, holed up with his scotch. Rumor had it. Mom poured Merlot, her smile a tight wire. Elena, you've made your point.
Now.
Let's discuss terms. Terms. Like I was negotiating a plea bargain. We picked at Coke Oven while she spun her web, apologies laced with barbs, offers of equity sweetened with maternal guilt. You were always so sensitive. Darling. After your mother's indiscretions.
I mean.
But Richard? He's changed. I set down my fork. The clink echoing. Indiscretions? You mean the affair with the pool boy that shattered our family at 12? Or the business trips to Atlantic City where you blew Dad's bonuses on slots. Her eyes flashed bingo. I'd hit the vein. She recovered quick, sipping her wine. Ancient history. But if you insist on dredging, I insist on truth. I slid a folder across the table. Victor's prelims on great-great-grandpa's ledgers. Your family funded the tower with prohibition booze runs. And you cooked the books to hide it. Back in the 80s. Tax evasion. Money laundering. Felonies with no statute. Her mask cracked. Just a hair. You wouldn't I? The wine soured on my tongue. This woman had watched me spiral after the divorce, popping pills like candy while I parented Sarah solo. Test me. We stared. Two queens on a crumbling board. Finally,
She sighed.
what do you want? Elena? Really? Everything, I whispered. The keys to the kingdom. And your head on a platter if you cross me. She laughed, brittle as autumn leaves. Then you've become him. Your father.
No.
I'd become me, the survivor they'd tried to erase. As I left, the city lights blurring in the cab's window, doubt crept in. Was this victory? Or just trading one cage for another? Rebirth promised vengeance. But the cost? It was carving out pieces of my soul with each calculated strike. And Sarah's text lit up my phone. I'm in.
For the testimony.
I love you. Maybe not all was lost. Or maybe that was the cruelest twist yet. The trial hit like a freight train barreling through Penn Station, messy, crowded, and impossible to ignore. By mid-March, Harrington Imports was a tabloid carcass, picked clean by reporters circling for scandal. Dynasty in chains, heiress versus heirs in courtroom clash, the Daily News blared, complete with paparazzi shots of me dodging flashes outside the federal courthouse in Foley Square. I wore sunglasses and a trench, but the vultures smelled blood. Mine. Mostly. But I'd drawn plenty from the others. The air was stale with old coffee and desperation. Sarah took the stand first, her voice quivering as she recounted Marcus's texts, the late-night whispers about handling me. He said Elena was a threat to the company.
To us.
That the crash was necessary. Gasps rippled through the gallery, mostly family retainers and curiosity seekers. Dad sat stone-faced in the defendant's row, next to Marcus, whose lawyer was a slick ambulance chaser from Jersey.
Mom?
She was in the back, anonymous in a sea of spectators, but I felt her stare like a laser. The prosecutor, a no-nonsense Latina named Reyes, paced like a shark. And you, MS. Harrington, chose silence until now.
Why?
Sarah glanced at me, eyes pleading for absolution. Because I was scared. But Elena, she's the only one who ever protected me. I won't let her down again. The jury ate it up, nods, murmurs of sympathy. I kept my face neutral, but inside, a flicker of something warm. Forgiveness? Too soon. But maybe a bridge, rickety as it was. Marcus's turn was fireworks. He exploded on the stand, denying everything, texts doctored, crash, tragic coincidence. But the forensics expert shredded him, tire marks proving pursuit, black box data from my car showing his deliberate acceleration. This wasn't road rage, the tech testified. Charts projected like damning hieroglyphs. It was attempted murder. Dad's testimony was the gut punch. He took the oath with that old charisma, spinning yarns of a troubled daughter and family pressures. Elena was always unstable, he said, voice booming, questioning deals, stirring drama. The disownment? Tough love. Reyes cross-examined like a surgeon. Tough love. Mr. Harrington? Or cover for embezzlement. Shadow Capital's funds, your daughter's funds, papered over $12 million in losses from illicit trades. And the crash? Hours after she threatened exposure. He blustered, sweat beading on his brow. Coincidence. I took the stand last. The room hinging on my words. Sworn in. I faced the sea of faces, juries, lawyers, the brother who'd tried to kill me, the father who'd let him. I died that night, I said simply, voice steady. Not legally, but in every way that mattered. Betrayed by blood, erased by lies. I detailed it all. The investments born of hope, the meetings' venom, the road's terror. No tears, steel only. They kicked me out, thinking me worthless. But I was the spine holding their empire upright. And when I fell, they danced on the grave. The twist came mid-testimony, courtesy of Mom's anonymous drop to Reyes, a hidden ledger from the Prohibition era, digitized and damning. Dad's empire? Built on bootleg cash laundered through Mom's family distilleries. Your legacy's a house of cards, I said, locking eyes with him. And I'm the wind. The jury deliberated 3 days, agony wrapped in rain-slick streets and takeout tie. I holed up in a Tribeca loft Victor had secured, pacing floors worn by artists long gone. Sarah visited once, bringing dumplings and halting apologies. I testified everything, even about Mom's stuff. We talked, really talked for the first time in years. Dreams deferred, regrets unearthed. I want to make it right, she whispered. Law school. Pro bono for whistleblowers. Like you. I hugged her then. The first crack in my armor. You can. But earn it. No shortcuts. Verdict dropped on a drizzly Thursday. Guilty on all counts. Manslaughter for Marcus, 15 years.
No parole.
Dad, fraud. Conspiracy, 10. With restitution. The courtroom erupted, cheers from reporters, sobs from distant cousins. As marshals cuffed them, Marcus lunged toward the rail, screaming, "You did this. You destroyed us." I stood, unflinching.
No.
Brother. You did. Outside. Flashes blinded. Mics thrust like spears. MS. Harrington, any comment on the family rift? Will you rebuild? I paused on the steps, rain mingling with the city's hum. The Harringtons are done as you knew them. But legacy? That's mine now. Clean. Transparent. Watch. Mom waited in the shadows of a cafe across the street, cigarette trembling in her manicured fingers. We didn't speak much, terms laid bare. She'd confess her role for immunity, fade into exile in the Hamptons with a modest pension. You're ruthless. Elena, she said, exhaling smoke. At your age. Worse, I replied. Because I learned from you. Months blurred into reconstruction. Shadow Capital rebranded Harrington Imports as Legacy Trade, slashing dirty deals, onboarding ethical suppliers from fair trade co-ops in Peru. Stock rebounded, modest gains, but real. Sarah enrolled at NYU Law on my dime, but with strings, internships at NGOs. No family favoritism.
Me?
I moved into the penthouse, but sold the tower, proceeds to a foundation for crash victims' families. Irony. Full circle. One night, 6 months post-verdict, I stood on the balcony overlooking the harbor. City lights dancing on black water. A scotch in hand, Dad's brand, for the burn. Footsteps behind me. Sarah.
Tentative.
Heard from Marcus today. He's
Sorry.
in his way. I nodded, not turning. Sorry doesn't uncrash a car,
No.
but it heals. Maybe. She joined me at the rail, wind tousling her hair. What about you? Happy.
Happy.
The word felt foreign, like a coat too small. I'd won, empire salvaged, betrayers caged, secrets exhumed. But the cost? Sleepless nights replaying the wreck, the hollow echo of a family fractured beyond repair. Rebirth had given me vengeance, but peace? That was the real twist, the one I'd never seen coming. It wasn't in the takedown, it was in the rebuilding, brick by bloody brick. Getting there, I said finally, clinking my glass to hers. One day at a time. As the ferry horn wailed in the distance, I breathed deep. The ghost was gone. Elena Harrington lived, not just survived. And in America's unforgiving grind, that was victory enough.